Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Sharri Plaza, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be diving into a topic today that's both fascinating and thought provoking.
It's wonderful to be here, Sherry. I'm excited to see where this conversation takes us.
Well, get this. Have you ever stopped to wonder if some of the stories in the Bible might have actually originated in ancient Egypt? That's what we're exploring today with our guest, Miss Realism.
It's a question that sparked a lot of debate and intrigue, and for good reason. The ancient world was so interconnected.
Exactly. We're going to be shining a light on the potential influences of ancient Kemet, also known as ancient Egypt, on biblical scriptures. Miss Realism, I'm eager to hear your perspective on this.
Well, first, it's crucial to recognize that ancient Kemet predates Christianity by millennia. The ancient Egyptians had a very sophisticated belief system, rich with concepts like the afterlife, moral living, and the divine nature of their rulers,
It's incredible to think about those ancient beliefs and how they may have traveled through time.
right? And many scholars believe that these ideas, myths, and symbols didn't just stay within Egypt's borders. They influenced various cultures across the Mediterranean and the Middle East, potentially even shaping early Jewish and Christian thought.
That's a powerful connection. So, how can we begin to trace these influences, and what should we keep in mind when approaching texts like the Bible with this historical lens?
That's where discernment comes into play. It's not about blindly drawing connections, but rather using critical thinking and scholarly methods to understand the historical and cultural context.
Right? So, tell me more about these methods. How do scholars actually go about analyzing these ancient texts?
Biblical scholars use a variety of fascinating techniques. There's textual criticism, where they look at the origins of the stories and try to trace back the different sources and potential alterations that have happened over time.
It's like piecing together a historical puzzle, isn't it?
Precisely. They also use historical criticism to understand the cultural and historical background of the time period, considering things like cultural exchange and syncretism.
Syncretism? Give us a little refresher on what that means.
Of course, it's basically the blending of different religions, traditions, or cultures. Think of areas like ancient Alexandria, Egypt, where Egyptian, Greek, and Jewish cultures intertwined, sometimes making it difficult to trace back a single pure origin for specific beliefs.
Such a melting pot of cultures and ideas. It makes you wonder how much those interactions might have shaped early religious thinking.
Absolutely. And that's why understanding the historical context is so important.
So, we've got these ancient Egyptian beliefs, we've got the development of Christianity centuries later, and in between, a whole lot of cultural exchange and potential influence. But things get even more complicated when we bring European colonialism into the picture, don't they?
Unfortunately, yes. The spread of Christianity, particularly during the colonial era, wasn't always a peaceful or respectful exchange of ideas. There was a lot of suppression of indigenous beliefs and practices.
It's a painful history, and it's crucial to acknowledge the ways in which interpretations of the Bible were used to justify colonization and control.
Absolutely. One way this was done was by reinterpreting existing symbols and stories through a purely Christian lens.
So instead of appreciating the richness of those diverse beliefs, there was an attempt to erase or distort them.
Sadly, that's often the case. Imagine, for instance, African deities being rebranded as Christian saints to make conversion seem more palatable.
That's such a striking example. It makes you realize how important it is to be aware of these power dynamics and the ways in which interpretations can be manipulated.
Exactly. That's why it's crucial to approach these texts, especially those as influential as the Bible, with a critical eye. We need to be mindful of Eurocentrism, which is the tendency to interpret everything through a European or Western perspective.
We need to decolonize our thinking, so to speak.
Precisely. It's about respecting the original contexts in which these texts emerged and recognizing the diversity of human religious experience.
This conversation has been so illuminating, but I have to admit, it also raises some really challenging questions. For people of faith, how do we reconcile these historical and cultural insights with our own beliefs? How do we even begin to decipher what's true?
Those are big questions, Sherry, and there's no easy answer. It requires a lot of introspection, open mindedness, and a willingness to grapple with complexity. Some people might find comfort in knowing that spiritual truths can transcend cultural boundaries. Others might see the Bible as divinely inspired, but written within a specific cultural framework. And some might struggle to reconcile their faith with these academic findings. The key is to approach these questions with respect, humility, and an openness to different perspectives.
I think that's such an important point. Respect is key here.
Absolutely. Respect for the texts, respect for the cultures from which they emerged, and respect for the diversity of beliefs that people hold.
We've been talking a lot about the challenges of interpretation, but I'm curious, are there any aspects of this topic that you find particularly hopeful?
One thing that gives me hope is the growing awareness of these issues and the increasing number of scholars and individuals who are dedicated to uncovering the truth and promoting interfaith dialogue.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity and the interconnectedness of our spiritual journeys.
Exactly. When we approach these conversations with curiosity and a genuine desire to understand, we create space for empathy, growth, and a more inclusive understanding of faith.
Miss Realism, this has been such an enriching conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure, Sherry. Always happy to delve into these fascinating topics.